on clauses, so I ask you to think about it. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Chairman, I'm not sure if you're listening to the debate before, but especially with the discussion of Maggie Barry, who went on for I think about 7 minutes, using we think Part 1 notes. My submission to you, sir, was that by the House accepting that, the debate was broadened and having people reply.
I think the member, look, it has been pretty wide, and I was chairing before dinner, and I certainly allowed a very wide debate. But I didn't pull anyone up. I'm just reminding member, we actually are talking about clauses, and would like to come back and actually mention the clause, clauses 1, 2, and 3. Raymond Ho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In that spirit, my contribution would be very extensive and very wide. Mr. Chair, what is fascinating about this bill is whoever introduced or purported to introduce this bill to this House turned out won't be able to stay in that position for long. So now we first had the Honourable Rodney Hyde, only to be succeeded by the Honourable Dr. Nick Smith, and who's succeeded by the Honourable Mr. David Carter. So what will happen to Mr. Carter? We will see. The other aspect which makes this bill very interesting is the level of opposition that are reflected in the submissions. There were 412 submissions on Clause 7, for example. And Clause 7 is to amend Section 10, that is purpose of local government. Of the 284 submissions that opposed the clause, 222 specifically opposed the removal of the 4 well-beings, or mentioned the importance of the concept of well-being. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason why I read out this departmental report is because if the Minister or members who voted for this bill have found our argument less convincing, let's have a look at the departmental report. And the Minister's own departmental report stated very clearly that those submitters considered that the removal of the 4 well-beings will prevent the local authorities responding to the needs of their communities, including supporting programs that address public health issues, providing social services for vulnerable residents, supporting cultural events, and taking a sustainable development approach. If the Minister finds less convincing again by his own departmental report, let me state very clearly that there are 2 further reasons to support the view expressed in those submissions. Firstly, the proposed changes and this bill is essentially a nonsense. The regulatory impact statement stated that the change is likely to have a symbolic effect and have not affect council business as usual. And secondly, councils must have the tools and sources of finance to deliver on their responsibilities, such as providing its share of infrastructure and transport. A majority of submitters opposed the removal of the 4 well-beings at the local government in New Zealand AGM in July 2012. Members voted unanimously to retain the 4 well-beings. Mr. Chair, let's have a look at the headlines of the 2 of the 4 major newspapers which were found largely in favouring of the National and ACT government, particularly during the last election. According to the Dominion Post, which was published on 25th August 2012, the headline is "Local Government Revamp is Draconian and Unacceptable." What the New Zealand Herald says in August 2012 is, "New bill could damage our well-being. Again, what is fascinating, according to Radio New Zealand Newswire, is the Prime Minister says the cycleway is a core council service. So in the light of the contribution earlier by my colleague, Mr. Phil Twyford, I think this bill is draconian and a bill for scaremongering and nonsense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I call Eugenie Sage.
Mr. Chair, another title for this bill would be the Local Government Act Amendment Bill, open bracket,